Welcome back to the Colorado Rockies. My name is Alex Murray, also known as AZ Axel. This is quarter three of 2025. And as you can see, we are up to October 6th, with it, which is the end of the regular season. We finished the season with 68 wins and 94 losses. So we were close to what I was expecting our season to look like. We did have some major issues we'll talk about here in just a second. For the second half of the regular season, it definitely felt like as if the second half was not in our favor, even though the development of our players definitely was. The let's just say the rest of it for the major leagues was really not that good. So as you can see, the San Diego Padres took the division with 95 wins, with the Los Angeles Dodgers coming in second with 94, and the Arizona Diamondbacks coming in third with 87. They did, in fact, make the playoffs alongside the Philadelphia Phillies and two other teams, which I'm actually not entirely sure who they were again now, the Atlanta Braves and the Milwaukee Brewers, as expected, basically. First thoughts about the regular season is that we really have a lot of work to do, unfortunately. The Rockies are just woefully understaffed for pitching, and while the offense still was able to provide some sparks here and there, having any amount of injuries completely derailed our season, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a little bit of time here. Let's go ahead and jump right into our emails, because this is what I kind of wanted to jump through, and it'll give you guys an idea of kind of how the season has gone. So Kyle Freeland is done playing with the Rockies, unfortunately, but as you can also see, he tore his elbow like right after he told us he wanted to be traded. So unfortunately, there is literally no way for us to be able to trade him, and he's going to cost too much money moving forwards, and he's probably not that good. So unfortunately, he's probably going to just be an unhappy little bugger for the rest of his time here. Right after that, of course, the All-Star game came around. We had, I believe, two representatives in the All-Star game. We ended up having Tovar at shortstop, and we had Victor Vodnik as our closer for the regular season. He actually had a really good season at that time. He actually had a 1.2 WAR season as a closer for us, so it was actually pretty good. The prospects, we ended up having Dollander as a rookie prospect all-star. Justin Lohr, one of our relief pitchers, was also on that list. I believe we also... Nope, that was actually it. Just the two pitchers at this point. We'll expect more people on that list as we move forwards. Bobby Witt Jr. ended up winning the home run derby, knocking off Corey Seager in the final round 21-15, and it was a good season for Bobby Witt Jr. It was a really good season. 9.4 WAR, led American League. 10 triples, led them as well. 337 batting average, led the American League. 199 hits. Almost gathered up the Triple Crown with the hits, home runs, and hits, batting average, and WAR at this point. But good season for him. Kyle Tucker helped the American League dominate the All-Star game. They ended up taking care of that, and that got us all the way up basically to the trade deadline. We were not doing very well. We went ahead and became active at the trade deadline, and we did 4 trades. We traded away Anthony Molina for Cedane Rafaela, I believe is how it's pronounced. He ended up becoming a great utility piece for us, played in AAA for basically 21 games and then got called up due to injuries. We also picked up Brandon Clark from the Boston Red Sox as well. They ended up picking up, again, Anthony Molina to be, I'm assuming, a relief pitcher for them, and he did okay. Well, negative .2 WAR. I guess he didn't do that good. We also traded away Tyler Kinley, one of our relief pitchers who was a bit older, to the Philadelphia Phillies, I believe. Yeah, Nebel Mariano was also included in that deal. He might be something that we're actually not happy that we had to get rid of, but the money saved from Kinley, who is right now $3 million, was very, very good. And we got Robert Moore out of the deal, and he's not terrible. He actually is an interesting option for us. I'm surprised he's actually in the rookie system. He should probably be up in AAA, but he'll be probably fighting for potentially a spot on the Major League roster next year if he can develop a little bit more. That's how bad we are, folks. That's just how it's going to be for a couple of years. For a couple of seasons, a 2 out of 2.5 star prospect is going to be something to watch out for. So we picked up him in that deal. That was kind of a money drop, unfortunately. We picked up a really young, or no, not really young, a 23-year-old first baseman, Peyton Carr. We got rid of Carlos Hernandez, who we had picked out of free agency to be a backup starting pitcher / relief pitcher. He did well in AAA, came over to us, played him as a relief pitcher. he didn't quite stick with us, unfortunately, and we ditched him over to Minnesota for Peyton Carr, who is a first base prospect, pretty average across the board. Chance to develop, maybe with a little bit of development, but outfielder, maybe left fielder as well. Maybe we'll see about that. We'll see how he develops over time. And then last but not least, we went back to Boston, actually. We picked up Vaughn Grissom from the Boston Red Sox. We actually picked him up. We sent over Estevan Florial. It was just a one-for-one swap. And Florial, who had been doing really well in AAA, we just don't have a spot for him, unfortunately. So we traded him over to Boston. He played in their AAA system for a little bit of time, came up at the expansion, and did okay for them. He really is like a star quad A player where he's just good enough to play defensively, and if you have a hitter's friendly environment, he might be able to flourish, but he just doesn't work well in most organizations. The avoid Ks is just too low. He struck out 105 times with us in 413 at bats. So that's 25% plate appearance. Well, not sorry. At bats is 351. So he struck out more than 25% of his at bats with us if you take away the walks. Now he did walk a good amount, 55 times, and he had a really good number for us in AAA. But unfortunately, there's just really no room in the majors for somebody who really has to have the cards fall in his favor, and the chips fall in his favor. My apologies, to be able to actually make it all work. Outside of that, we picked up a new prospect, Andrew Edmonds, out of the International Complex system. At this point, we're very interested in him. He could develop into something. He's got a chance to play third base. We'll see what he can do moving forwards in the league, but interesting little discovery from one of our people. And then shortly after that, Kyle Freeland got injured, and he's out for the regular season, probably out for a little bit of next year as well. He's got 10 months, and that was back in August. Ryan Ritter had a great day in AAA. He ended up hitting, I believe it was 4 home runs, my apologies, in a AAA ball game where we took down the Harrisburg Senators, my apologies, 16-5. Ritter had a very good season in AA. We're hopeful that he can develop a little bit more of this bat, and the defense is quite good if he can get around to getting some of that bat around. So it was a good sign for him this season, and we'll see what he can do next year. He ended up getting a top player for the week because of that, of course. And then we had some really sad news, not super sad, but it was sad enough because if you're a Rockies fan, you know who this is. This is Antonio Senzatella, and he is officially retiring. He will not be coming back from his torn UCL, which he had, I believe it was at the beginning of the regular season. Actually, I think it was in the middle of the regular season, but basically he decided that he was done. He was still in a contract for a decent amount of time. I think he still had, at least a couple more years left of his contract, and he was like $12 million. So we're happy because technically we don't have to pay him, but we're sad because he was a big staple point of the Colorado Rockies for a very long time. Ever since about 2017 when he came up to the big leagues, he's actually been a pretty decent starting pitcher for the Rockies when he's not, having issues being unhealthy. So sad to see him go, but also not sad to see him go. Feltner, unfortunately, tore his meniscus at the August 19th stage, so our best pitcher, debatably, is now officially out for the rest of was out for the rest of the season. We lost Tovar for the rest of the regular season on August 26th, so the injuries just kept pounding on us, unfortunately, and he ended the season with 72 games played and a 3.8 WAR season. So I can only imagine how good a full season of Tovar could have been at the rate that he was going. If you just simply, that's 140. So let's just even double that. If you double his regular season, 32 home runs, batting around 330, maybe has a 8 WAR season. That's MVP caliber type of results from a Gold Glove shortstop. So we're very hopeful that maybe Tovar will be healthy next year. Hopefully he doesn't get into the fragile situation due to having 2 injuries this season. Let's just say we're hoping the effects are negligible on his ability to continue playing. And then, of course, the next day, we found out that Nolan Jones was out with a fractured tibia for 6 to 7 weeks. He's been out for the rest of the regular season, basically. So he had a terrible season as it was, a negative 0.9 WAR. If he's in arbitration at this point, we're probably just going to let him go and be done with him, unfortunately. So that might be the end of Nolan Jones's time in a Colorado Rockies jersey. Willie Concepcion, our manager in the rookie system for DSL, was actually given the Manager of the Year award for the DSL. For the Spokane Indians, they had a very interesting retirement. Jamison Hanna retired. He actually was having a really solid season and had just been called up to AAA, I believe. And he unfortunately decided to retire. But at the same time, he was probably not going to make it to the big leagues anyways. We had some interesting developments from some of our players. Just in regards to, I think it was, a couple of prospects have gotten some good stuff. Dollinger got some good increases on his abilities, so we're hopeful that might be a good thing, a good sign for him to develop. Yanquiel Fernandez got some good development. We were glad to see it. Glad to see that at this point. Terran Vavra got some good improvement, but as you can see, he just retired, unfortunately. So much for that, unfortunately. Brenton Doyle had some off and on stuff. He's been having an interesting season. Ryan McMahon had a great season, though, at this point. I think he was probably our best hitter. Finished the season with 28 home runs, 34 doubles at this point, 99 RBIs for Ryan McMahon. So it was an interesting season. It was a hopefully forgetful season, and to round it off, our California single A system Fresno manager Samuel Deduno, my apologies, was given the Manager of the Year for that league as well, which kind of goes to show that our minors did way better than our majors did. Every single one of our minor league teams was 500 or above. Multiple teams ended up going to playoffs. We had a couple of them. I think at least the Fresno Grizzlies, I believe, were part of playoffs for their whole entire season at this point. I don't believe they won their seasonal playoffs or not. I'd have to double check on that, unfortunately. But it was a good season for our minor leagues, and we are still technically ranked first overall because it hasn't updated for the off season yet. But we're hopeful that a lot of our players are going to start developing into good directions with our development at this point. So I get a good development here for Calaz. We'll want to see that. He's getting some of the currents and potentials up, so hopefully he can continue to develop. I know Ben Montgomery has been struggling, but he's also having interesting development. It's just been rough. I'm not entirely sure if we're having tons of success or just staggered success. So we'll have to see about it. But a lot of our stuff did feel like as if it improved. And we'll just have to see what the offseason looks like and how the player development does. At the end of the regular season, as you have heard already, the Phillies and Braves, Brewers, Padres, Dodgers, and Diamondbacks all went to all are going to playoffs. CJ Cron and Shohei Ohtani are the top home run hitters for the National League, with the American League having Gunnar Henderson popping in with 56 home runs. That's a lot of homers for Gunnar Henderson at this point. That's a lot for 66 power. Wow. That's out of nowhere. Anywho, for the American League, it looks like it was the Tampa Bay Rays, the Baltimore Orioles, the New York Yankees slipping in for a final spot. The Minnesota Twins, Kansas City Royals, and Texas Rangers rounding out the 6 teams that are going to be in for the American League. One of the things I probably will do after every single season is review the good and bad decisions we've made as our GM ship is going through each season. So right off the bat, Kunwoo Kim, 2.0 WAR, great decision to pick him up in the minor free agency signings period. Nabil Krasmat, another of our starting pitchers, we picked up over the course of the offseason, with Tristan McKenzie being another person about there. So we picked up a couple people who are at least giving us positive results as starting pitchers, but those are not exactly amazing results to have moments for. Our big trades with the Red Sox and the Philadelphia Phillies and even the Oakland A's, actually, when we got we traded away Brendan McKay for Josh Rojas. We ended up using Rojas for a little bit of the regular season. Didn't really do that well for us, but it looks like as if Brendan McKay did pretty poorly for the Oakland A's, so it's still a net profit win right about there. But then our big loss was that Sean Bouchard trade, unfortunately, and that's mostly because Palacios just really did not do well this season. Unfortunately, he provided us lots of depth, but the bat just wasn't there. So unfortunately, Bouchard even having a decent hitting season for the Rays just means that that trade was pretty much a loss. Carlos Hernandez was the one person we gave to the Minnesota Twins, and Peyton Carr came back in that deal. We won't see any returns from that for a while. And then the Vaughn Grissom deal for Estevan Florial, that's just going to be rough because he really didn't get a whole lot of playing time, and we won't know how that goes for a little bit more time anyways. But just thought it'd be kind of cool to review all of these every single season, see what was the good choices, what were the bad choices, and maybe what we'll do down the road that's a little bit differently. Alright, we went ahead and got up to the end of the playoffs. Our final score for the season is 205. Nothing to be proud of, but then again, we kind of knew it was going to be like that, so I don't have an issue with that at all. In all honesty, that is currently just fine for me. Now, I wanted to quickly talk about two things before we get started with our arbitration review, before we get into basically previewing the offseason and our plans and how we're going to handle the offseason. We are officially working through the international amateur free agents that are all revealed now. We're going ahead and we've got about 10 people on our list that we're trying to go through and start scouting. These are the 10 of them right about here. We've got about 5 pitchers, if my memory is correct. 4 pitchers. 1 catcher, a couple outfielders, 3 of them, and 2 shortstops are going to be the people that we're going to try to shoot for right about now. There are a couple of pretty decent starting pitchers. Of course, one of them is Carlos Cancel, and he is very, very good. The entire league is going to go after Cancel, and they're all going to want to sign him. Everything else seems pretty average. We're starting to see some really good results from Julio Duran, which was a 3-star prospect when we looked at him at the beginning. Now he's suddenly a 4-star prospect from our head scout's opinion. So we might be looking at taking on Duran if we can't go after some of the more expensive starting pitchers we saw near the top of the list. So that's what we're doing about now as we get up through the playoffs. The playoffs just finished for the major leagues. And if I go back to our standings in the playoff tree, the Kansas City Royals have upset the entire American League, and the Diamondbacks took out the Dodgers in the wild card, and then the Braves, taking down the Phillies and the Padres, then faced the D-backs, who took down the Milwaukee Brewers in the division series, and then they got promptly swept by the Braves in the NLCS, and then the Braves promptly got swept by the Kansas City Royals in the World Series. So we could have had a D-backs Rangers rematch in 2025, but for a D-backs team that was an 87 game winning team, and for the Royals who won only 88, this was a very interesting season. The Braves probably should have had it, but they are swept in 4 games straight, and the Kansas City Royals are your 2025 World Series champions. Our owner has gone ahead and given us the budget for the new upcoming season. $180 million is going to be our budget. He thinks that our payroll should be around $120 million. We'll be reviewing all of that in the offseason, trying to figure out what our best options are from the front office page, basically. We've got about $28 million about now, but again, those long-term deals to people like Bryant and Freeland and McMahon are going to come back to bite us a little bit here, unfortunately. And we've got some people who are going to start making some pretty big money as well. You've got people like Romo and Doyle and Feltner who are going to start asking for higher arbitration numbers here pretty soon. So we're going to have to manage our expectations for how we're going to be handling all of these young kids who are coming up through the system, and exactly who we're going to be keeping and who we are going to be getting rid of. Otherwise, our owner is pretty happy with how the team went for the 2025 season. In all honesty, he's happy with the performance and accomplishing the goals. We've got some stuff to work on, but I'm hopeful that we can be able to get all that stuff done. Antonio Senzatella is the one person reportedly retiring from the Hartford Yard Goats. We already knew about that, unfortunately. Top prospects for the upcoming off season: Walker Jenkins is now number 1 overall. Charlie Condon is still number 3. Richard Dominguez Dominguez drops down to number 8, as I believe Andrew Painter is now officially starting to develop, and he's very close to being a pretty decent arm in the Phillies rotation. He might be starting next season. But then look at this, number 10 on the list. Chase Dollander has snuck his way onto the top 10 for the pitching, for the prospects of Major League Baseball, which means that our system is still first. Calaz is now 26th, and our number 1 pick from this offseason's MLB first-year player draft, Quinton Young, is now officially 44th. This is our arbitration preview. We'll be working through all of this in the next quarter, basically in the next video. We'll be talking about what we decided to do about all of this, but as you guys can see, we do have quite a few players who do need to have arbitration applied to them, and we'll have to figure out what exactly we're going to be doing with a whole bunch of these players. A lot of them are probably just going to be releasing and trying to get some fresh young arms and better batters involved. So you can probably say goodbye to a lot of these people. We're probably going to be trying to clean house, start fresh next season. Maybe we'll keep McKenzie, Feltner, and Krismat. That might be the 3 starting pitchers that I actually do want to keep, but everything else is kind of a you're on your way out. Thank you so much for being here. So that's where we're going to end the video. This has been quarter 3. Not the results we exactly wanted, but the development is starting, and we have a really good minor league system. Mostly thanks again to Richard Dominguez, but Dollander and Condon making up the difference as well. We'll have to see what we can do with those two and how well they develop over the course of the offseason and into the next season, as both of them could be on our starting lineups next season. So with that all being said and done, I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.